Now that everyone knows that Mexico is definitely not paying for the Trump wall, turns out most Americans are not in favor of it or most of Donald Trump's policy priorities. Who knew? According to the poll released on Thursday by the Associated Press-NORC Center for Public Affairs Research, about 6 in 10 Americans do not want to fund the Trump wall, or what I'm going to start calling Trump's folly. Apparently, according to the poll, the public opposes new spending on the wall 58 to 28%. Nearly half say they strongly oppose funding for the wall project. So it looks like the wall, not very popular, especially when you realize you're the one that's paying for it. Who'd have thought?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, in fact, I've got some quotes from regular Americans, a Trump supporter and a non-Trump supporter. One of them is Wes Drought, 61, a firefighter and paramedic from Winnebago, Illinois, who strongly disapproves of Trump. I have to note that. He says, I honestly think the wall is going to be a fiasco. They want to get into the country. They're going to get into the country regardless of what you put up there. If they're going to do something, do it with the Border Patrol. If you want to create jobs, there's a job. Okay. Well, hey, at least there's, that's sensible, right? Now, let's see. Broken down by party, 86% of Democrats and 50% of independents oppose new spending on the border wall with Mexico. Republicans break about 2-1 in favor of the wall because they like walls. They love walls. Walls are apparently tremendous.
Especially the best walls.
Especially the best walls.
And don't worry bigly with those walls.
But don't worry, it's got a big, beautiful door in it. That's what's going to happen. It'll be big and beautiful. Except when it cuts through. Did you happen to read the story where there were some Trump supporters very, very angry in Trump supporters in South Texas that are like, that wall is going to go through our land. Well,
no, I hadn't seen that. I mean,
what did you expect?
Yeah. Yeah, the wall is just such a painful waste of resources. Like, I mean, and I can't get over the fact that it's even, it's one of those issues, the fact that it's even a talking point blows my mind. The fact that, you know, I mean, he increased the military funding budget by what, like 50 billion, something like that. And then this is going to be another expenditure by the party that's supposed to be conservative when it comes to government spending. Yet they think that this is a worthwhile investment. Meanwhile, we need to cut NEH. We need to cut public broadcasting. We need to cut. We need to defund Planned Parenthood. We need
that
to do
stuff's
this.
actually in the poll too, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. In fact, let me get to that here. Let me see if I can find it. All right. Okay. Let's see. There's the military. Okay. Hold. All right. So there's. Let me start out first by going through some of the stuff that the Trump supporters agree with, and that the American people overall agree with in Trump's budget. You're going to be not surprised by this. Now, Americans overwhelmingly supported cuts to foreign aid. However, they opposed Trump's plans cuts to spending on environmental programs and fighting climate change. So that's actually a good thing. People were more likely to oppose than favor cutting federal help for public broadcasting and the arts, and by huge margins supported additional money for veterans programs. Now, one Trump supporter said the military is depleted and the veterans have been hurting, said Margaret Hall, 77, a Trump supporter from Fort Lauderdale. See, but here's the thing, dude. The military is not depleted at all. Do you know why we're not spending money on veterans despite giving the Pentagon $600 billion a year in spending? It's because all that money goes to defense contractors. All of that money. Or ridiculous projects, you know, done by defense contractors. For example, the plane, F-35. So it's not going to the troops. It's not going to the veterans. It's all going to these giant, you know, corporations that do nothing but make more weapons of war that we don't exactly need. So giving more money to the military is not the answer. And I don't even know what the phrase "the military is depleted" even means. I don't even think she knows what it means. What is the military is depleted? What does that even mean? Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those nebulous phrases that has no meaning behind it. None. Now, related to this, the most popular proposal in the Trump budget is increasing spending on Veterans Affairs, which is supported by 74% of Americans and opposed by just 8%. So, look, on this, okay, I can support that. Veterans Affairs, great. But I still think the number one way to help veterans is to stop creating more of them. That's usually the number one way, in my opinion. Now, Americans are also more likely to favor than oppose increased spending on Border Patrol, 50% to 32%, and decreasing spending on foreign aid. So, again, I mentioned the foreign aid, and I'll get to some stats on that because that's crazy. 47 to 34% margin on foreign aid. More also favor than oppose spending, increasing spending in defense in the military, which drives me absolutely crazy. Because, again, we spend more money on our military than any other country combined.
Yeah, I think the next 13 countries combined.
Something like that.
Something like that. I mean, it's astronomical what we spend on our military. And we don't even spend it efficiently. I mean that they spend it on making bombs. They spend it on that which profits places like Halliburton. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, they don't have adequate resources for soldiers when they come home. They don't have I mean, if your boots get, I mean, Sam Ronan was telling us if your boots get messed up, you got to shell out $140 out of your pocket to replace those boots. Even despite these insane military budgets, they don't cover stuff like that for the individual soldiers. I mean, it's completely corrupt. It's not only an over expenditure budget for a lot of principal reasons, but it's also misdirected as far as actually helping those that put themselves in harm's way.
Absolutely. And look, again, there's in my view is there's no need to spend that much on the military. I mean, it's not like we necessarily need it. I mean, we don't need that big of a military. We don't need that much spending on it. Because, for example, if you have that big of a military and that well-funded of a military, you're going to want to use it. And what do you think we've been doing? It's our military-industrial complex. And, when you have one of those, it has to justify its existence somehow, right? And that's by creating more war and then participating in those wars.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And look, foreign aid, okay, so I promised a stat on foreign aid. Now, most people think that foreign aid makes up a huge percent of the budget. Let me give you some numbers on that. According to surveys, most Americans tend to think that foreign aid counts for at least a third of the federal budget. 31%, and some people think it even makes up half of the budget. What's the reality on that? Foreign aid makes up about a little less than 1% of the budget. 1%. Isn't that amazing? Why do people think that foreign aid takes up so much of our money? I've never understood that. I mean, maybe it's news never talking about it. I mean, we hear all this, money going to Israel, for example, or Egypt, or, other places. Oh, man, that's a lot of money. Not in the context of our budget. It's actually a very small amount of money. 1% of the budget in foreign aid. And yet a lot of people, they see that, they're like, yes, cut it, get rid of it. Look, it really is kind of amazing. It's peanuts. It's peanuts.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest, I did not realize it was that low.
It is. It's super low.
I would have guessed a little higher.
No.
So, I mean, I didn't even realize.
It's the tiniest sliver in the pie.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's interesting.
Again, that's super, it is super interesting. But you know why people don't know this stuff? It's because the media and nobody tells them. Nobody points out the numbers. Nobody goes and looks it up in the charts and the spending. It's an astronomically small part of the budget. But anyway, so now here's a couple of the things that Trump and the American people oppose. By a 64% to 19% margin, they oppose decreasing spending on scientific and medical research. And that was a big part of some of the cuts in the Trump power budget. And finally, most Americans oppose cuts to spending on the environment and on climate change by a 52% to 28% margin. So, like, there's most American voters saying, "What are you doing, cutting, stuff on climate change and the environment? Are you kidding? Are you like, no, we actually want you to solve these problems." But the reason that, of course, is they're cutting all this stuff so they can afford tax cuts for the richest Americans and oil companies and giant businesses. That's what they're doing. Oh, and sorry, I kind of glossed over the fact that also Americans are more likely to oppose and favor cutting spending for public television, radio, and the arts, and that's 44% to 32% margin. So even the arts, even most Americans are saying, no, let's save PBS, let's save Big Bird, let's save all these different, these different organizations that do arts and television and stuff. So, look, most Americans don't line up with the priorities of the Trump budget. Okay, they don't agree with the priorities of. Maybe it's unfair saying it's the Trump budget. It's more like the Ryan budget that he's been trying to get passed ever since he's gotten into office. But Trump, he's endorsed it, and it's kind of his now. He's the president. He's like, yeah, oh yeah, that looks fine. Power budget, hard power.
Well, I think it was Harvard that, I mean, this goes beyond Trump. I mean, I think there was I think Harvard did the study or something like that where they actually showed how, like, pretty much all policy ideas, public opinion is never really reflected in any of them. Like they never,
right.
I mean, until you call your congressman until the phone's off the hook and until people go to town halls and start protesting, which is happening now, pretty much most doesn't take public opinion into account at all. So I mean, there's a total disconnect between, government and the people, and it's because we kind of have an oligarchy.
Not kind of, we do.
Plutocracy. Yeah.
It's almost a corporate kleptocracy at this point.
Yeah.
Like taking more and more from the people and giving it to wealthy business owners and wealthy corporations and CEOs.
Well, I think in the broadest sense, it's a plutocracy because it's pretty much the people with the resources control
with the money.
Things.
They're running in the golden rule.
The people with the money pretty much control things. If you really want to strip it down, that's what we're dealing with.
It's the golden rule. The people who have the gold make the rules. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.